Hi, and welcome to this Weekday Word. Our New Testament passage comes from the 6th chapter of Paul's letter to the Christians in Ephesus, where Paul is giving practical advice on how we are to live our lives. And in the end of our passage, Paul writes this: "Bondservants, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart as you would Christ, not by the way of eye service as people pleasers, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, rendering service with a good will, as to the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he is a bondservant or is free. Masters, do the same to them, and stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours is in heaven, and that there is no partiality with him." Now, while there's certainly a troubling edge to this passage as Paul is talking about slaves and masters, and all of that can be adequately explained, I think the larger point for us today is that these principles apply today to the workplace as well. To employees, Paul says, don't just be people pleasers who give eye service. In other words, don't just do a good job when people are watching. Do a good job. Be a model employee. And do your work as though you're doing it for Jesus himself, with Jesus watching you. Work in that way. And to employers, Paul says, do the same thing. Do your jobs as though Jesus is watching you and supervising you and the way that you handle your employees. And don't threaten them. Don't be an unkind or harsh employer. And one way of looking at this is that Paul is giving us advice on how to be good citizens, good employers, good employees, to be models in that regard. And that is certainly true. But I think another way of looking at it is that Paul understands why that works. And that is because God has made the universe in a particular way. God created us in his image to work, to do work, to be creators, to be productive people. Work is not a punishment. Toil and the thorns and thistles of the ground were a punishment, but work itself is a blessing, part of being created in God's image. And that's why when we do a good job, we find such reward in it. And Paul understands that. And so the more we live in accord with the way God made the world to work, the more we will be blessed and the more we will be a blessing. I pray that today you hear these words in a way that inspires you to do your very best for Jesus, no matter where you are, whether you're at work or at play, at home or out in public. Be blessed this day, and I look forward to seeing you soon.